In the news tonight, Jordan and Saudi Arabia signed 3 agreements totaling $179.4 million to finance economic and development projects in the kingdom. As fighting rages in Syria, the UNHCR describes the situation of refugees as a full-on crisis and warns that the acceleration in the exodus could exceed 1 million refugees before the end of June. And thousands of Tunisians turn out in the funeral procession of a secular opposition leader whose assassination 2 days ago has plunged the country deeper into political crisis. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. The Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation and the Saudi Fund for Development signed 3 agreements totaling $179.4 million. The agreements are part of Saudi Arabia's contribution to a $5 billion fund the Six-State Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) has set to support Jordan. The agreements were signed by Minister of Planning and International Cooperation Jafar Hassan and Vice Chairman of the fund Youssef bin Ibrahim al-Bassam. A statement by the Ministry of Planning said the agreements are a continuation of previously signed financing deals between the two sides, totaling $487 million under the first stage of Saudi Arabia's grant to the kingdom. The funds will be used to finance economic development zones, infrastructure, technical community colleges and university infrastructure development projects, and finance the establishment of Al Jdeida Railway. The two sides also signed a $120 million agreement for the reconstruction of the road linking the central city of Zarqa with the Jordanian-Saudi border at the Amiri crossing point. Syrian government forces fought back in an effort to retake sections of the Damascus Ring Road from rebels trying to tighten their noose around the capital. Rebel fighters based in the eastern Ghouta region broke through defensive lines 2 days ago, capturing parts of the road and entering the neighborhood of Jobar. Heavy fighting was reported at the Hermela junction on the ring road just south of Jobar. Fighter jets fired rockets around Jobar, Qaboon and Barze districts. Warplanes fired rockets at southern parts of the route where rebels spent the past 36 hours overrunning army positions and roadblocks encircling the heart of the city, the site of key state security and intelligence installations. Video posted on social media showed the aftermath of the fighting in Damascus. One video showed destruction and burning tires on an abandoned street off the southern ring road in the capital, and another showed the aftermath of mortar shelling on the roof of a building in Qaboon. Opposition activists said they were battling President Bashar al-Assad's forces in an offensive that aims to break a stalemate in the city of 2 million people, where artillery and airstrikes have prevented opposition fighters entrenched to the east from advancing despite their capture of army fortifications. And as the fighting rages, more Syrians are fleeing. About 5,000 refugees are fleeing Syria each day, seeking safe haven from war and its devastating impact on basic living conditions. The UN Refugees Agency said an acceleration in the exodus, up from 2,000 to 3,000 late last year, means the total could exceed 1 million refugees well before the end of June. Since the conflict began 2 years ago, around 800,000 Syrians have registered as refugees or are awaiting processing in the region, mainly Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan and Turkey. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, warned the exodus could get even more intense as there are more than 300,000 Syrian refugees in Jordan and about 200,000 in Lebanon.
1,000 people are now crossing the borders of Syria into other countries every single day. So this is really a full-on crisis right at the moment. Today's figure, there's 787,000 Syrians are now registered or being assisted as refugees. If you go back to 19th of December when we issued our Syria regional response plan, the figures then were 515,000. There's been a huge increase. In January alone, we're talking of a 25% increase in registered refugee numbers over a single month.
Braving the chilly weather, thousands of Tunisians turned out for secular opposition leader Shukri Belaid's funeral in his home district of Jebel Jaloud in the capital Tunis, chanting anti-Islamist and anti-government slogans. His assassination has shocked a country which had until now experienced a relatively peaceful political transition. But as police and mourners clashed at the mass funeral, it is feared Tunisia is plunging deeper into political crisis. Lu'ay Balqar has more in this report.
It was Tunisia's biggest funeral since the death of Habib Bourguiba. Shukri Belaid's death has brought at least 50,000 of mourners to the funeral of the Tunisian opposition leader, who was killed on Wednesday by a gunman who fled on a motorcycle. Crowds carried Belaid's coffin, draped in a red and white Tunisian flag. The assassination has shocked and sparked a political crisis in the country since the revolution 2 years ago that overthrew President Ben Ali. Sporadic protests and clashes have been reported all around Tunisia, and 2 years after the uprising that overthrew President Ben Ali, chants for land, freedom and national dignity once again rang out. Crowds also chanted slogans accusing the government of murdering Belaid and calling on the Prime Minister to resign. Police began firing tear gas to disperse the crowd, and dozens of anti-riot police rolled in with sirens blaring. In Sidi Bou Zaid, the southern town where the revolt began, about 10,000 protesters gathered to mourn Belaid and shouted slogans against Ennahda and the government. Prime Minister Hamdi Jbali said he would dissolve the government and form a non-partisan cabinet of technocrats to rule until elections could be held. Unions have called for a first general strike in 35 years, setting the stage for further confrontation between the dominant Islamists and their secular opponents. Banks, factories and some shops were closed, and hundreds of anti-riot police deployed in Habib Bourguiba Avenue. Tunis Air also suspended all its flights because of the strikes.
Yes, I closed my store because of the mess and the situation in the country. We don't believe in anything.
The economic effect of political uncertainty and street unrest could be serious in a country which has yet to draft a new constitution and which relies heavily on the tourist trade. Lu'ay Balqar for the news at 10.
After days of relative calm, thousands of Egyptians marched in cities across the country in protest against President Mohamed Morsi. Thousands gathered in Cairo's Tahrir Square and outside the presidential palace, chanting anti-Morsi slogans. The most violent clashes were in the Nile Delta town of Tanta, hometown of an activist who was buried there this week after being beaten to death by security men in Cairo. Scores of protesters threw petrol bombs at riot police, who responded with tear gas to disperse the demonstrators. In Kafr al-Sheikh, protesters pelted police with rocks and tried to storm the government building to demand the removal of the provincial governor. At least 34 people were killed in 4 car bomb blasts in Iraq as sectarian violence grows ahead of provincial elections in April. 15 people were killed in 2 car bomb explosions at a vegetable market in the town of Shomali, south of Hilla. And in a separate attack, 2 car bombs were detonated simultaneously in a Friday street market in the Shiite district of Kadhimiya, killing at least 16 people and wounding another 44. The attacks were the latest in a spate of violence, coinciding with growing tensions between Iraq's Sunni, Shiite and ethnic Kurdish factions. So far, no group claimed responsibility for the attack. Snow began to fall across the Great Lakes and parts of the northeastern United States ahead of a record blizzard. Emergency workers prepared for snow removal, with forecasters warning the wintry front could drop to almost a meter of snow on some areas. Blizzard warnings were in effect from New Jersey through southern Maine, with Boston expected to bear the heaviest blow from the massive storm. The day was expected to begin with light snow, with winds picking up and snow getting much heavier by the afternoon. More than 2,200 flights have already been cancelled by airlines and another 500 tomorrow. French-style seafood used to be the big seller for a restaurant in central Tokyo, but now the chef is revealing a dirty secret. Chef Toshio Tanaba has been cooking up soil, yes, dirt, and feeding it to his customers in a 6-course meal. He's been running the Ne Quitte Pas, or Don't Leave, French restaurant in Tokyo for almost 20 years, and over the past 8 years he's been slowly introducing his customers to soil-inspired cuisine. After the clean and chemical-free dirt is pre-checked for harmful substances, it is cooked to release the flavor and run through a sieve to remove any stray grains of sand. The 6-course extravaganza starts with an amuse-bouche of soil soup served with a flake of dirt ingrained truffle and ends with a soil sorbet and a sweet dirt gratin. The 6-course dirt meal costs $107 per person, and while some customers have taken to his brand of dirty dining, others remain unconvinced. Let's talk about shoes to die for. A collection of some of the world's most coveted fancy footwear sashayed into New York City at a special exhibit curated by the museum at the Fashion Institute of Technology. Among extravagant shoes at the Shoe Obsession show are a pair of silver Malo Blahnik shoes worn by actress Sarah Jessica Parker on the television show Sex and the City, and Lady Gaga's one-of-a-kind monstrously high ballet slippers without heels. Shoes by famous designers including Christian Louboutin, Alexander Wang, Roger Vivier and Prada were among the most prominent shoes on display. Another work of art is the Windhorse shoe by Japanese designer Masaya Kushino. The shoe stands out because the designer used handcrafted wood, a type of Japanese traditional leather, and human hair for the shoe's ponytail. So if you're a shoe freak, head to New York for the Shoe Obsession collection that will remain open till April 13th.
Okay.
We begin with cycling and the Tour of Qatar. Former road race world champion Mark Cavendish won his 4th straight stage to wrap up a rare overall victory in his 2nd race for Belgian outfit Omega Pharma Quick Step. The 2011 world champion, who has 23 Tour de France stage wins to his name, clinched another sprint finish in the 6th and final stage in Doha. Cavendish beat Yahuni Hutrovic of Belarus and Dutch rider Barry Marcus. The British held a 25-second lead over American Brent Brookwalter in the overall standings, while American Taylor Phinney in 3rd place. In NBA, the Boston Celtics crushed the Los Angeles Lakers 116-95. Paul Pierce poured in 24 points, including 12 in the decisive 3rd quarter. He also added 7 rebounds and 6 assists to hit stat line and shot an efficient 10 for 17 from the floor. Kevin Garnett added 15 points and pulled in 5 rebounds as Boston won its 6th straight game after losing 6 straight in January. Kobe Bryant tried to keep the Lakers in the game with his own shooting display to start the second half, but it wasn't enough as the Celtics took control. Bryant finished the game with a team-high 27 points.
Terry lines up the three and knocks it down. And these fans in Boston, they are unconscious.
And finally, to the weather outlook, it'll be cold tonight with southeasterly to southwesterly light to moderate winds. Although a slight rise in temperature is expected tomorrow, relatively cold and partly cloudy conditions prevail in hilly areas, while it'll be fair in other parts of the country with northeasterly to northwesterly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect warm weather with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Jordan and Saudi Arabia signed 3 agreements totaling $179.4 million to finance economic and development projects in the kingdom. As fighting rages in Syria, the UNHCR describes the situation of refugees as a full-on crisis and warns that the acceleration in the exodus should exceed 1 million refugees before the end of June. And thousands of Tunisians turn out in the funeral procession of a secular opposition leader whose assassination 2 days ago has plunged the country deeper into political crisis. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.